Hello there. This is Justin West with LifeAfterLiberalArts.com, and today I want to talk to you about something which I suppose you could file under things I didn't learn at Harvard Business School. FU money. What is FU money? Well, let me give you an example to help illustrate the idea. Imagine a guy who hates his job. Okay, like that, but only this guy instead. Once upon a time, there was a guy named Steve, and Steve didn't get offended by the video title because he was too busy hating his life, and also because I had not written or filmed this yet. But even if I had, he's the kind of guy who'd watch all the way through to the end to get the meaning first, and only then would start trolling. Anyway, Steve had a job that he hated. But Steve had a family that he loved, and because of them, he had a mortgage he had to pay, and he had two car payments too, and Steve was still paying on his student loans from 15 years before, and he was looking at taking on more debt because he had three daughters approaching college age and, worse than that, marriageable age. And the way he saw it, he didn't have a job, but rather his job had him. You see, he feared that job. He feared going. It felt like going to prison, and yet he feared being let go from it too. He was trapped. And the only option he saw for his future was a similar situation at some other company. So he went to his job every day, he did the bare minimum to get by, and he slowly died a little bit inside every day. Then, one day, Steve was walking home, feeling like a parolee who knew he was out on bail, but was going to have to return again in a few days, when suddenly a rogue Tyrannosaurus Rex ate him. The end. True story. Okay, I made up the part about him being eaten, but the rest is so common it wouldn't matter if this particular Steve existed or not. I could go out to the mall today and I could find five guys named Steve, and four of them would probably think that I just regurgitated their life story, and the fifth Steve wouldn't be married, but he'd think I was telling his future. See, Steve wasn't free because he owed a lot of money to a lot of people, and he didn't have any left over to build for his retirement. He didn't find purpose in his job, which is in part a personal failing, of course. After all, monks in monasteries have found great purpose in menial labor for millennia, but he also didn't see that he had a way out. Ever. So far as he could see, he was going to be in that job until he died. And then he died. But I made that part up. Well, the part about the dinosaur anyway, though I'm pretty sure Steve isn't immortal, and if you're watching this, neither are you. What Steve needed was some free you money. Aha! Not what you thought it meant, right? Well, just be patient. We'll get to the other meaning too. So what is this free you money? Free you money is money that comes in from some other source other than your job, and which can help you buy back some of your time spent at your job. The last time I checked, there's 24 hours in a day. Theoretically 24 usable hours, but of course you'll go psychotic and possibly die if you don't use about 8 of those for sleep, so we can get rid of those right now. Much like the great MC Hammer said, you can't touch this, so this leaves about 16 usable hours in a day. Now, in a perfect world, that would leave a nice, neat 8 hours for work, and it would leave a nice, neat 8-hour chunk for everything else. But the world ain't so neat and tidy, is it? For most people, like Steve, work takes up over half of that 16-hour block of time. Over half of that, at least 9 hours, are spent working an 8 to 5 job or some equivalent thereof. And then, of course, there's the hour before and the hour after that you spend or Steve spends getting ready for work and getting home from work and cursing at the jerk who cut him off during his commute. And then there's the regular daily stuff like eating and shopping and occasionally playing with his family. And when the day was done, only a small chunk of time remained for Steve, as it probably does for you, and then he would just sit there in front of the TV or the internet and decompress from the day that he hated. He'd watch and soak up a little bit of propaganda that encouraged him to spend what little bit of money he had left, and then he'd go to sleep tired, wake up tired, and wash, rinse, repeat. What would happen if you didn't have to spend those 9 hours at a job that killed you? What if you could use just 1 or 2 of the hours left over after everything else had been done and invest them into a way to make some extra money, like building a small business? What if that way to make extra money could grow bigger over time? What if it could eventually win back some of the time that you spend at your job, or even replace your full-time income? Well, friends, then you'd be free. Now, what kind of a business, you might be asking? Well, one which brings in some kind of a passive income is the best way, because once it's set up, you don't have to keep working at it very hard. Let me give you a brief example. Warren Buffett, the financial giant, the investing guru, the guy who runs Berkshire Hathaway, he got his start with a pinball machine. He bought it used, he cleaned it up, and he put it in a barber shop. And it brought in a steady stream of quarters. And he stored away some of those quarters for maintenance of the machine, but the rest he saved. He didn't spend them until he could buy a second machine. And he put it up in another barber shop. And now he brought in twice as many quarters, and he kept saving them. And eventually he bought, yep, 2 more. And then 4 more. Well, you get the picture. And pretty soon, he didn't have to worry about money anymore. And that's what FU money can do. It can free you. Now, the modern version of the pinball machine might be perhaps the Redbox DVD kiosk, and of course, we're all familiar with various vending machines. But caution, while I'm drawing an illustration about one way you can build passive income sources for FU money, I am not necessarily endorsing these methods, mostly because they're bloody expensive to start. They're expensive to maintain, they take a lot of work and upkeep, and honestly, the market is becoming oversaturated very, very quickly, meaning that you have to compete fiercely even for a little bit of success. But the principle here is sound. Great, you say, but how do I do it? Well, you need to find a dedicated amount of time and usually a little bit of money to get started. Okay, Mr. Smarty Pants, where do I get money and time that I don't have either of, you might be asking? Well, let me recommend killing your cable, which will free up your money and simultaneously some time. Now, if you don't have a cable bill, you can look for superfluous spending, that's extra spending, spending on things you don't need, and kill it there. Everybody but the poorest of the poor has this. If you still can't find money after looking over your entire budget and everything you're spending on, including coffees and fast food and restaurants and everything else, then do what I did and spray paint house numbers on the curb for people at $5 a pop. Then, when you've got a little bit of money and some time, you just have to find the right kind of business model you can springboard yourself into success with. Just like I did. You throw your time and your money towards your freedom. Like you mean it. Like Warren Buffett did. You do it fiercely and you don't look back. Once you get a small amount of money, you keep reinvesting it and growing your stockpile of FU money. Do it successfully. Get some training. Find a mentor or a support group. Invest in your future. Invest in your education, in your training. Find like-minded individuals and you can win back some or even all of your time spent at work. Think back to Steve. Remember how he hated his job? Well, let me ask you something. What would happen to Steve on the day that he made more working part-time than he made at his full-time job that he hated? What do you think he'd tell his boss when he was ready to quit? Yeah, he'd probably use the other FU. And that's what you can do with FU money. You can free yourself. What would you do?